Presidential Commission of Inquiry to request Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe to testify. Joint opposition MPs offers local government election support to SLFP on condition members defect from national government. Former Minister Mervyn Silva forms new party. Supreme Court rules GEETHA Kumarasinghe cannot hold parliamentary seat due to dual citizenship. Good evening and welcome. This is Primetime News coming to you live and direct from our studios here in Colombo. I am Shahin Jurang Party.
And I am Chandra Raj. Let's take a look at those stories in detail. The Supreme Court ruled today that GEETHA Wickremesinghe cannot hold her parliamentary seat because of her dual citizenship. The judgment was delivered following a petition filed before the Supreme Court by GEETHA Kumarasinghe against the order delivered by the Court of Appeal.
The petition was examined by a 5-member bench headed by Chief Justice Prasad Dep. Following the judgment, the panel ordered the Registrar of the Supreme Court to make available the decision to the Secretary General of Parliament. GEETHA Kumarasinghe was elected to Parliament under the United People's Freedom Alliance ticket from the Galle District in 2015. 4 residents of the Galle District filed a case before the Court of Appeal stating that GEETHA Kumarasinghe cannot hold a parliamentary seat as she is a citizen of both Switzerland and Sri Lanka. Former Minister PSN Gamage, who received the next highest number of preferential votes in the Galle District to GEETHA Kumarasinghe at the 2015 general election, was also a party to this case. Former Minister PSN Gamage was present in court today, while GEETHA Kumarasinghe was not. However, her elder sister was seen in the court premises.
This is not our personal problem. This was a decision taken on behalf of the Sri Lanka Freedom Party voters in the Galle District. We express our utmost regret to her. We, as well as the people of the country, are pleased to see that the law is being enacted fairly this way, devoid of any interference nor issue. Well, I suppose I will have to, wouldn't I? No, I will not. I have not given my word on that. I am in the Sri Lanka Freedom Party, its vice chairman. So there is nothing more to think about. The Presidential Commission of Inquiry reconvened today. Zulfiq Farzan joins us now from the newsroom for the full details of today's proceedings.
Now, the Presidential Commission of Inquiry says it has received an affidavit from the Prime Minister in response to the questionnaire that was sent to him. Now, in a carefully worded statement, the Presidential Commission says that as they require clarifications and any further necessary evidence, the Commission will be requesting Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe to appear before the Presidential Commission for a hearing, of which the date will be announced later. Now, the reason to announce the date later, according to Justice K.T. Chitrasiri, is that Justice Prasanna Jayaratne, who suffered an injury to his leg, needs time to recover as he is just out of surgery. And that is why they said the date in which the Prime Minister will appear before the Commission will be announced later. Officers from the Criminal Investigations Department who are assisting the Presidential Commission testified for the first time. They are CID Inspector Ishan Waban, CID Inspector Nalinda Hewat, and CID Police Sergeant Cyril Wanasinghe and S. Mahinda. All of them testified that they never harassed, threatened or made any promises to the people who came before them to provide statements before those people testified before this commission. They even added that if certain amendments were needed to be made to those statements, the person in question who provided that statement was asked to make that amendment in his own handwriting. Now, today, CID Chief Police Inspector Sampath Kumar Senaratne, a well-qualified forensics detective, provided evidence relating to the extraction of material from communication devices, especially from the mobile phone of Arjun Aloysius. Now, the Chief Inspector said that the Criminal Investigations Department uses 2 reputed softwares for this purpose. One is NCASE, built in the United States, and the other is called DEFECT, which is built in Israel. Now, he said for the extraction process he used this software called DEFECT, and When it came to the extraction of material from the mobile phone of Arjun Aloysius, the Chief Inspector said he had to extract material on 3 separate occasions, mainly because Arjun Aloysius did not give the username and password for his iCloud account. Now, Chief Inspector Jayaratne is the only licensed and registered person to use these softwares in the Criminal Investigations Department, and he goes down in history as the first ever witness to testify before a commission with regard to the evidence in relation to extracted material from a mobile device that was subject to a digital forensic investigation. Another witness who testified today was the General Manager of the National Savings Bank, Dhammika Pereira, and he testified that he witnessed former Deputy Governor P. Samarasiri at the meeting which was summoned by former Finance Minister Ravi Karunanayake with all the heads of the state banks. Yesterday, the Voice Against Corruption organization convening a media briefing said that they are in possession of telephone conversation recordings in relation to the bond auction on the 27th of February 2015. This morning on Newsline, Newsfirst Faraz Shaukat Ali asked convener of the organization, Vasanta Samarasinghe, how did he come into possession of these voice recordings.
But first of all, Mr. Vasanta, I'd like to ask you, how did you get these tapes?
Yeah. So many people have given us to evidence regarding these scams. Then one of our source from outside, really after 2.5 years, this tape sent me by outside.
From outside of Sri Lanka?
Yes, outside of Sri Lanka. He's living in UK. I think so. He's living in UK. After that, he phoned me and...
Is this Sri Lankan man?
Yes, Sri Lankan man, exactly.
It's a Sri Lankan man, not
yes,
a lady?
Not lady, yes.
Right. Okay.
Then I can only say, like, Sri Lankan man, he talked to me, and after that he mentioned to me he had this kind of tape, telephone conversation on that day, on the 15 February 27th, 2015.
That means
October.
on the day of the auction?
Day of the auction. Yeah. He talked to me and he asking to me, you can release to media. Then that's why he sent me. Then yesterday, after 1 week ago, I got it. Then I listened and I clarified.
Yeah.
Then after that, yesterday I exposed to the media and country. Then we hope to send it to Presidential Commission too.
However, it must be reiterated that these telephone conversation recordings are not new evidence to the Presidential Commission of Inquiry. These recordings were used to confront people such as the Bank of Ceylon dealer JKD Dharmapala, CEO of Perpetual Treasuries Kasun Palisena, and also Steffi Fernando, an employee of the Central Bank. All the people who were mentioned in these telephone conversations have been summoned before the Presidential Commission, and they have been asked to testify, and their evidence was recorded. Therefore, these telephone conversation recordings are not new evidence for the Commission. Now today, another important matter took place at the Supreme Court of Sri Lanka, where a fundamental rights petition filed by Perpetual Treasuries Limited was taken up. Let's have a look of what transpired. The Supreme Court today dismissed the petition filed by Perpetual Treasuries Limited regarding their license being suspended by the Monetary Board of the Central Bank of Sri Lanka. The bench, consisting of Chief Justice Prasad Depp, Justices Buoneka Aluvihare and Nalin Pereira, handed down the order taking into consideration the preliminary objections put forward by the Attorney General. Perpetual Treasuries Limited had filed the petition after the Monetary Board suspended its commercial license to operate as a primary dealer for 6 months. Arjun Aloysius filed a petition requesting this decision taken by the Monetary Board of the Central Bank on the 6th of July 2017 be nullified. The Attorney General's Department, presenting facts, said there is no legal right for Perpetual Treasuries Limited to file such a fundamental rights petition.
Australian Prime Minister Malcolm Turnbull arrived in the island this morning for a brief official visit, where he met President Maithripala Sirisena and Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe before leaving the country.
In his meeting with President Maithripala Sirisena, Prime Minister Malcolm Turnbull had held discussions on transnational crimes, including human smuggling and drug trafficking. Premier Turnbull had said Australia would gift Sri Lanka with 3 Stabby-craft vessels for Coast Guard operations. The Australian Prime Minister went on to note Australia will assist in establishing the National Defence College in Sri Lanka, adding his government would dispatch a senior military officer for 2 years to provide administrative and curriculum expertise and to deliver select course modules to the NDC. Prime Minister Malcolm Turnbull met his Sri Lankan counterpart, Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe, at Temple Trees. During the meeting, a bilateral trade and investment framework agreement was signed between the two countries. Sri Lanka's involvement in China's One Belt, One Road project was also discussed at the meeting. The two Prime Ministers also discussed the constitutional reform process and a number of bilateral factors. Parliamentarians representing the joint opposition have said they would support the Sri Lanka Freedom Party at the local government elections on the condition that it defects from the consensual government. In a letter addressed to the General Secretary of the Sri Lanka Freedom Party, Minister Duminda Dissanayake, the joint opposition has laid out 7 conditions for the SLFP if it is to receive the joint opposition's support. The letter claims to be a response to a letter addressed by the General Secretary on the 19th of October. It bears the signatures of 42 MPs of the joint opposition, including that of former President Mahinda Rajapaksa. In addition to defecting from the consensual government with the United National Party, the joint opposition also urges that strict legal action be taken against those involved in the central bank bond scam, devoid of position. It also calls on the SLFP to move away and oppose the process of transferring ownership of state resources, constitutional reform process, and take immediate measures to curtail crime. Sri Lanka Freedom Party MPs representing the joint opposition go on to note in a letter to Minister Duminda Dissanayake that if these conditions are not met, it will be compelled to seek the opinion of the party members and voters on the future course of action. Most of the proposals in the letter have already been implemented. The SLFP together with the UNP have established a national government based on a decision of the party's Central Committee. The main aim of this is to work together on a number of key issues. Even during the time of former President Mahinda Rajapaksa, the UNP signed an agreement in order to aid the war effort. Currently, both parties are working together to take the necessary steps to strengthen the country. I believe everyone should understand this clearly. The SLFP is not under the UNP, nor is it vice versa. This also does not mean that the SLFP or the UNP have betrayed their core principles. In another one of our headline-making stories this evening, today former Minister Mervyn Silva officially launched his new political party, the Deshiya Janata Party, following religious observances.
A number of individuals accepted party membership at the occasion. Following the event held at the residence of Mervyn Silva in Narahimpita, the former minister shared these views.
I was buttoning up my shirt when Pirit was being chanted. It is my private lifestyle. If you want, you can put this video as well, like you did when the Prime Minister was talking during the national anthem. Who asked for a new constitution? No one called for a new constitution. This is being done under the influence of dollars, euros and pounds. If someone comes to interfere in the country, we are ready to throw them into the sea. We will rise up like King Gamunu, who went against 44 years of King Elara's rule. There is no point in having burnt out bulbs in the house and complaining that it is dark. Throw out the burnt out bulbs. Just because a ball is thrown at me, I won't hit it. I might ignore it. When necessary, I will hit the ball. We are willing to work together with anyone who accepts the ideas of King Dutugamunu and Anagarika Dharmapala.
The debate on the interim report of the Constitutional Assembly Steering Committee took place for the 4th day today.
I was observing how this debate was taking place. A member of the UNP speaks for the government. A member of the TNA speaks for the opposition. The SLFP takes a turn next for the government and the JVP for the opposition. These are all people who conspired to bring about Yahapalanaya. The true opposition of the country, the joint opposition, only gets around 10 to 15 minutes. I stayed the entire day yesterday and then left. When Mrs. Bandaranaike was being elected, we said that your vote will empower a constitutional assembly. Have they said something similar? They didn't say that they were going to change the constitution during the presidential election. They said they would abolish the executive presidency. Finally, they said that we will bring about changes which do not require a referendum. They are trying to do this without a public mandate. This is an important juncture in Parliament. We should allow every member to vote according to their conscience. I make this request from the Prime Minister. Take this decision. During the former president's speech, he said that a majority of the time was dedicated to the government. In reality, a total of 673 minutes was allocated for the government, while the opposition received 829 minutes. Of this figure, the joint opposition received 228 minutes. We have granted more time for the opposition. We need a political devolution of power. The Progressive Tamil Front has not agreed to the complete abolition of the executive presidency. We believe that a person elected by the entire country should serve as president. Devolution of power does not mean the division of the country. Because Sambandhan took over the post of opposition leader, he was able to send a clear message to the rest of the country that they are ready to live in an undivided country. They have come to this position. Please don't let Sambandhan return to the north empty-handed. The executive presidency should be abolished, not the presidency. However, the president should not be someone's pawn or scarecrow. The general meeting of the UNP Young Professionals Organization, Colombo Chapter, was held in Colombo yesterday. A number of views were expressed on the constitutional reform process.
Probably a lot of people don't know this. I brought a photocopy of Mahinda Chintanaya Path to Success. If I quote, I will take action to formulate a new constitution that reflects the people's ideas, aspirations and wishes within a period of 1 year. In the same chapter, he says the entire parliament will be formed as a constitution council, consisting of people's representatives belonging to all political parties, which will identify the people's expectations and aspirations in order to formulate a new constitution. This is what we have done. I think probably Prime Minister would have read this before. And when we are in government and when we try to do this, it's a totally different story. Now they are saying, no, they don't need a new constitution. I don't understand.
This whole issue of the unitary state, Ekya Rajya. Now we are accused of mutilating or doing away with the Ekya Rajya. What is an Ekya Rajya? There is no agreed definition. Ekya Rajya at one time it was thought as United Kingdom was described as the prototypical unitary state. The prototypical unitary state where Westminster Parliament is supreme, etc., indivisible, that kind of thing. But what happened in the United Kingdom? In 1926 or so, the Westminster Parliament passed a law, Ireland Act, and allowed Ireland to go away from the Union. Rata Bedua in 1926. One of the issues that we considered was that, using this unitary word unitary, no barrier to separation. But Ekya in Sinhala means what? The oneness. So we thought we'll use the word Ekya in Sinhala as well as in the English one. That's one of the proposals.
Basically, in all our activities, we will have a decision-making framework. The first pillar, we have 4 levels of decision-making. The first one is that we will be ethical. The professional segment generally veers to the right side of society, we feel. So, the first pillar is ethics. Second is we will do what's right for Sri Lanka. We are a political party, but first we have to do the right thing. Second, we have to do what's right for the country. Third thing, we will do what's right for the party. And the fourth matter is we will look at individual concerns.
Today, United Nations countries mark the International Day to end impunity for crimes against journalists. The importance of this day stems from the worrying situation that over the past decade, more than 800 journalists have been killed for bringing news and information to the public.
115 journalists were killed in 2015 alone, making it the second deadliest year over the last decade after 2012, when UNESCO tallied 124 killings. The UNESCO believes when attacks on journalists remain unpunished, a very negative message is sent that reporting the embarrassing truth or unwanted opinions will get ordinary people in trouble. Furthermore, society loses confidence in its own judiciary system, which is meant to protect everyone from attacks on their rights. Issuing a statement to mark the International Day to End Impunity for Crimes Against Journalists, Director General of UNESCO, Irina Bokova, calls for the world to stand together to bolster the safety of journalists and to ensure justice is done. Several heinous crimes against journalists and media institutions in Sri Lanka that have been left unanswered. Sri Lanka is ranked 141st among 180 countries in the 2017 World Press Freedom Index, compiled by Reporters Without Borders.
The World Bank, releasing its second development update on Sri Lanka for 2017, said the island needs to improve physical and financial resilience to natural disasters in order to better manage the impact on the economy. Which is right here.
Sri Lanka is increasingly becoming vulnerable to recurrent natural disasters, which are increasing in frequency and severity. According to the World Bank, on average, the impact of natural disasters on infrastructure, agriculture and relief aid is estimated at 50 billion rupees, which is equivalent to 0.4% of Sri Lanka's GDP or 2.1% of government expenditure. The drought in 2016 and 2017 affected approximately 2 million people across 17 districts. It also contracted the agriculture sector, giving rise to inflation. Because of the prolonged drought, rice production in 2017 is expected to be the lowest in the last 10 years. The drought also resulted in more food imports and petroleum imports. Against this backdrop, the World Bank said better disaster risk management must be an integral part of Sri Lanka's growth model.
It's important to be better prepared. It's important to prove physical resilience, meaning identify where the risks are and then act on them by building climate resilient infrastructure. But similarly, it's important to be financially resilient, meaning it shouldn't affect the budget execution. It's important to have a layered approach to disaster risk financing. Your budget can deal with small disasters, but for big disasters you can buy international reinsurance, you can issue catastrophe bonds, and you can benefit from contingent credit lines, whether commercial or from the international community. Having a fast disposal mechanism post-disaster, a recovery plan after floods and disasters, and buy catastrophic risk insurance.
The Exchange Control Department of the Central Bank of Sri Lanka is to introduce a new Foreign Exchange Act. This new act will repeal the Exchange Control Act.
The purpose of the Foreign Exchange Act No. 12 of 2017 will be to provide for the promotion and regulation of foreign exchange, to vest the responsibility for promoting and regulating foreign exchange in the central bank as the agent of the government, and to provide for matters connected. The new act, according to legal experts, has further relaxed foreign exchange regulations in the country. However, the essential regulations and guidelines regarding this act have not been publicized and have not been debated publicly. Speaking to News First, the former chairman of the Ceylon Chamber of Commerce, Chandra Jayaratne, said matters that were raised by civil society and media have not been included in the act.
The ego-minded government of this day, who thinks that the ministers in governance know better than institutions and institutional executives, have taken the powers that were formerly vested in the central bank and as a regulatory authority, and now most of the transactions, most of the penalties, most of the enforcements are subject to either the minister's guidelines, minister's approval, minister's information, minister's concurrence, and the minister doing some actions which will lead to those provisions being enforced under certain conditions.
Mr. Jayaratne, providing an example, said a person who brings into the country undeclared money worth $1 million will only have to pay 1%. If the value of the undeclared amount is over $1 million, that 1% too will be waived off according to the new act.
And if you bring over $1 million or any money and invest it in development bonds, you are also exempted from the fee. And once invested into development bonds, you can freely take it away. Black money made white. What is this government trying to do?
The 14th annual general meeting of Sri Lanka-Russia Business Council of Ceylon Chamber of Commerce was held in Colombo yesterday.
I must say to you,
several cultural dancing items were performed during the event.
The political background of our relations is so favorable, is very much favorable for the development of our bilateral economic, trade, technological, scientific relations. Generally, we have no contradictions with Sri Lanka on any political international items. Almost all the approaches to all main international issues are the same, both in United Nations and in other international forums.
The DNA examination results of Sherry Atchison to ascertain her birth mother were released a short while ago. Following the initial News1st revelation, an individual claiming to be the birth mother of Sherry Atchison came forward. According to the British laboratory that conducted the DNA test, the two DNA samples are a 99.9% match.
Sherry Atchison is listed as one of the UK's top 35 most influential women in Tech 2017. On the 18th of last month, Newsfirst launched an investigation to locate her birth mother. Sherry was born on the 28th of January 1991 as Nivoshika and 15 days later was handed over to an Irish couple.
This was our resident cartoonist take on today's news.
In sports news this evening, officials representing the Indo-Pacific Rugby Championship met with Minister of Sports Jayaratne Jayasekara today to discuss the possibility of Sri Lanka being a host nation.
The Indo-Pacific Rugby Championship is the brainchild of Australian billionaire Andrew Forrest. The proposed 6-team competition will run for approximately 4 months. There will be 10 home and away rounds plus finals and a total of 33 matches. Cities that have been earmarked for participation include Singapore, Kuala Lumpur, Colombo, Mumbai, Hong Kong, Shanghai, Seoul, Tokyo and also the Pacific islands of Fiji, Tonga and Samoa. The Indo-Pacific Rugby Union intends on making Sri Lanka a part of its inaugural tournament. This will include many other nations and it will no doubt be a massive boost for rugby in Sri Lanka. The IPRU will be great for Sri Lanka and important for local rugby. I strongly believe this will be the beginning of a fresh lease of life for our rugby.
It is an unbelievable opportunity for Sri Lanka rugby and Asian rugby per se, and actually for world rugby as well. Amazing opportunity for us. I believe that this will actually take Sri Lanka rugby to the next level and give us a real opportunity to compete with the best teams in the world. This becomes a reality. If this championship becomes a reality, we will see Sri Lankan players finally playing with the best in the world.
It was a fantastic meeting with the Minister today and also with the Sri Lankan Rugby Union. We were really happy to explain the Indo-Pacific Rugby Championships concept and received a really positive hearing. So we look forward to continuing that conversation as we continue working with World Rugby, the other member unions of Asia Rugby as well. Well, we're really engaging with the whole region around the opportunity. We're looking at ultimately 6 clubs that will participate in this competition, and Sri Lanka is one of those prospective markets that we want to explore. There's a really strong history, as you point out, over 140 years of rugby tradition and over 70,000 registered players. So we want to explore that over the next few months as we work through this concept.
Outcomes for the future is just to see where we can bring this Indo-Pacific Rugby Championship within the region. Sri Lanka obviously is bringing grassroots rugby. You already have a lot of development going on in this area, so we'd like to understand how the Indo-Pacific Rugby Championship can help this.
And that is a wrap of Primetime News. Thank you very much for watching. I am Shahin Jurangpati.
And I am Chandra signing off.